What's up, everybody? My name is Image and Likeness, and this is another video on a guy in the 9th century. 9th century, who was in the first Eucharistic controversy. So I already did a video, or maybe I will do a video, I don't know which order I'll post it in, of the guy saying that Christ is substantially present in the Eucharist, and now this guy saying, no, you man are crazy. Okay, he's a Frankish monk of the monastery of Corbie. His name is Ratramnus. Yeah, watch my language. Took on to refute Paschasius on his transubstantiation, but no one said transubstantiation yet. That was said a lot later. I just said it because that's what it is. An influence of the Protestant Reformation. Guys were taken from him, trust me. Thomas Cranmer claimed to have been finally convinced against transubstantiation by this guy. So we'll see if he convinces you. All right, let's go. A figure. How did I do this? Yeah. Okay, a figure. This is all his words. Maybe paraphrased a bit of it, but the idea is definitely his. A figure is a certain covert. A figure is a certain covert manner of expression which exhibits what it intends under certain veils. For example, we call the word bread, as in the Lord's Prayer. We beg that God would give us our daily bread, or as Christ in the Gospel speaks, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Or when he calls himself a vine and his disciples branches, I am the true vine and ye are the branches. In all these instances, one thing is said and another thing is understood. So he says a figure is when one thing is said and another is understood. When one thing is and another is actually understood. Let's keep going. Figuratively, since these things are undeniable, 'tis evident that the bread and wine are figuratively the body and blood of Christ. As to their outward appearance, there is neither the likeness of flesh to be seen in that bread, nor the liquor of blood in that wine. And yet after the mystical consecration, they are no longer called bread and wine, but the body and blood of Christ. So this is the most literal he's ever going to speak about it. That last quote, he says, no longer called bread and wine, but the body of Christ. I don't know why he said that, because I don't even know, you'll see. But yeah, he says, because it doesn't look like, according to the outward appearance of flesh and blood, it has to be signifying figuratively the body and blood. Because it doesn't look like flesh, the body has to be signifying the flesh. It cannot be the flesh because it doesn't look like it. Okay? He says, how are we apprehending the body of Christ? That is, body of Christ, Christ's body is exhibited with which is beheld, received, and eaten, not by our carnal senses, but by the sight of the believing soul. So you see the contrast between the last guy. The last guy said, you apprehend the body just by eating, by the senses, but you apprehend the benefits by faith. But he's saying, no, you apprehend the body by faith. So an unfaithful person, when he's eating, for him it's just bread. Yeah. But for the faithful, for him he's eating the Christ's body. So Christ's body is not truly there in an objective sense, because the guy without faith is not eating Christ's body. Rather, it's dependent on your faith. Nature of the bread remains, according to him. Now it is certain that there is no change of this kind made, for 'tis well known that the nature of the creature remains in truth, and the very same that they were before. Therefore, if nothing be changed, the elements are nothing but what they were before, and yet they are another thing, for the bread is made blood, body, and the wine is made the blood of Christ. So again, it doesn't look like it, but it is figuratively. Okay. Objection. Except ye drink the flesh of the Son of Man, and eat the flesh of the Son of Man, and drink his blood, you have no life in you. For he doth not say that his flesh which hung on the cross should be cut in pieces. For it had been a crime for his disciples to have eaten his flesh and drunk his blood, in the sense that the unbelieving Jews then understood him. So yeah, so he's saying that first of all, it's not, he doth not say that his flesh, so it's not his flesh which hung on the cross that's cut into pieces. Yeah. He thinks, this is why I said in the last video that he said the flesh you're eating in the Eucharist is the flesh born of the Virgin Mary, because he says it's not, because then you'd be cutting up his actual flesh. He says it's only figuratively signifying that flesh is born of Mary. It's not actually a flesh. And then he also says that the Eucharist was not, it couldn't have been the real, because it would have been a crime for the disciples to have eaten and drunk in his flesh, because that's against the Jewish practice. And he says in the sense that the unbelieving Jews then understood him, which is honest from him, because it is very obvious that everybody around Jesus at the time took him extremely literally. The Jews took him extremely literally. That's why they were weirded out by him. So yeah. And he also appeals to early church fathers. He appeals to Augustine when Augustine calls the Eucharist a sign and a sacrament. Augustine uses this language a lot. He always calls the sacraments signs, because that's what a sacrament is according to him. It's a sign. And so he appeals to Augustine. He also distinguishes between the sacrament of his flesh and the verity of his flesh, or his true flesh, in so much as he saith, in that the true flesh which he took of the Virgin, he was crucified and buried. So this is what I said before. He sees two types of flesh. The sacrament of his flesh and the verity of his flesh. So he sees two types of flesh. And so the flesh you're eating in the Eucharist is not the flesh that was born of the Virgin. It is actually the sacrament of his flesh, not the verity of his flesh, not his true flesh. So there's two flesh. The one you're eating in the Eucharist is not the one that was born of the Virgin Mary. That's why that point is important. But the other guys, the guys that believe in substantial presence, say that yes, you are eating of the flesh of the Virgin Mary, because what the hell, who else are you eating if it's not Christ, who is born of the Virgin, according to them. Okay, two senses of body. Now the figure and the truth are very different things. Therefore, that body and blood of Christ which is celebrated in church differs from the body of Christ which is glorified. That body is the pledge or figure, but this the very truth itself. The former we celebrate till we come to the latter. And when we come to the latter, the former shall be done away with. Christ's body has two senses. In heaven his whole body, and in the sacrament it is sacramentally his body, as it is a sign of his body. So yeah, this is where it gets a bit confusing, because he says it is his body because it's a sacrament and sign of his body. Okay, I don't really understand it, because how can it be his body if it's just a sign of his body? But listen, it is his body in a sacramental manner, which means a sign matter, signifying matter. So yeah, so two senses of body basically. The one on the Eucharist is a sacramental body, which means it's not actually his body, but it's a sign of his body, and we can call it his body in a sacramental manner, and his actual body which is in heaven. By faith the body is apprehended. I said that before as well. If we attend not to that which feeds the body, which is chewed with our teeth and ground to pieces, but to that which is spiritually received by faith. So again, you receive the body of Christ through faith, according to Ratramnus or something. How is it his body? Everybody answers this question in a very different manner. Not very different, but we'll see how he answers it. How is the bread his body, and how is the cup or the liquor in the cup his blood? These, my brethren, are stilled sacraments, because in them we see one thing and understand another. That which we see hath a bodily nature, that which is understood hath a spiritual fruit or efficacy. But the latter, which is set on the Lord's table, is a figure, because it is a sacrament. So you see his language. This is why I didn't really understand the first one, because he said it's not bread anymore, but it's Christ's body. I didn't really understand it, because he says something like this when it's a very clear question. How is it his body? He says it's his body because it's bread signifying his body. Yeah, it's a figure, it's a sacrament according to him. What you see is bodily nature, but what you understand is sacrament, because it figures a sacrament. And now let me tell you how Ambrose answers this question, just as a comparison, because I see the comparison. It's very clear, the comparison for me. So and this is significant because Augustine, when he answers how is his body, Augustine's like we shouldn't question these things. But Ratramnus, he appeals to Ambrose the second most behind Augustine. And look how Ambrose answers this question. This is in his Mysteries, chapter 9. Perhaps you will say, I see something else. How is it you assert that I received the body of Christ? Same question. And this is the point which remains for us to prove. And for what evidence shall we make use of? Let us prove that this is not what nature made, but what the blessing consecrated. And the power of the blessing is greater than that of nature, because by blessing nature itself is changed. And then he literally says 2 chapters on, shall not the word, not 2 chapters, sorry, 2 paragraphs, shall not the word of Christ have the power to change the nature of the elements? Yeah. It's pretty clear the difference in how they answer it. He is saying it's Christ's body because it's a figure of Christ's body. It is one thing and you understand another thing, but he's saying no, it's not that it is one thing. It is, the nature is what something is, and he's changing the nature of the elements. Conclusion: a figure, but not mere figures, because Christ's body is eaten through the sacrament. Because if it was just a figure, then you wouldn't be able to partake of the body, but rather it's a figure that is tightly connected to the reality, so that Christ's body is actually eaten through the sacrament by faith only, alone. 2 senses of Christ's body. He has a real body and a sacramental body, which is only a figure of his body. And then, not only, it is a figure of his body. And then body is only apprehended through faith. And the unfaithful do not eat Christ, but mere bread, because they don't have faith. And the nature of bread remains. So yeah, that's this guy on the Eucharist. Very interesting because he's very early. And he resembles a lot of the Protestant Reformed views of the Eucharist. He's very early as well. That's why guys were like using him in the Reformation. He resembles Calvin's view the most. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm going to do more, and it's going to get even more techie. These Eucharist videos are going to get even more techie, because once I go through guys like Bonaventure, yeah, and Duns Scotus, oh my days. Okay, but I'll chat to you man then, yeah? Alright, I'll see you guys later.